Battler podcast with your host, Mike Holt.
Are you interested in podcasts that uncover the truth? Tune into Widdershins podcast. Straight from science fiction, we uncover the technologies being developed right under our noses. We bring to you the world's leading scientists, engineers, and experts to discover just how far away these things really are from becoming our reality. www.widdershinspodcast.com.
Dick Yardley's book, Australian Political and Religious Leaders, Treason, Treachery and Sabotage. Dick exposes how Whitlam, Hawke, Keating, Goss, Rudd and all the other Fabians have destroyed our manufacturing and agriculture. If you want to know exactly how they have done it, get Dick's book at advanceaustralia.com.au and click on merchandise. Knowledge is power. Get the power to fight the corruption today. Well, good day again, and in the chat room today I've got Alex and Dr. Barry. Alex, what's your title?
Well, I'm a Lord.
You're a Lord, okay.
Lord, no, look, I've been very blessed to have been asked to be the chairman of the steering committee for the Common Law Courts of Australia, and it's been an honour to watch in such a short period of time an amazing group of people come together to make this happen.
Yeah, it is. It's really good. We had about 26 or 28 people in the last meeting.
Yeah, and it's growing more and more. You know, there's a lot of people who are apologising for not being able to make meetings, but in the space of, from the first meeting when there were three of us who gathered together to get to a position where we're ready to be starting to set up state committees is phenomenal.
It's amazing, actually. I think we've only been going, what, 6 weeks?
Yep, just 6 weeks since Barry and I met. Yep. And, you know, I'd been throwing around the idea for probably 12 months with a fellow called Glenn Sinclair, saying that there's so many fantastic people out there who are all doing this great work. And if we could get them all around the same table, we'd be invincible. And then I met Barry, and Barry was the keystone for everything. He just said, well, let's bloody do it. And I said, I'm with you. And the rest, as they say, is history.
Yep. Well, you know, I mean, Barry got me involved in this, and there's a lot of good news coming out of these meetings, which is why I've asked you to come with me today. So let's get started. Last Thursday night, we had a meeting on Zoom, and with those 26 people, we agreed to start setting up common law court committees in each state. I'll be setting up the one in Queensland. Barry and you will be setting one up in Victoria, and we have other members now who will be setting them up in the other states. So these common law courts will be convened very soon. I've already sent over 8 affidavits to you, and they have now gone over to the International Common Law Court branch in Scotland. Is that correct?
Barry, do you want to take the head on that one?
Yeah, well, basically, the UK or Scotland, or whatever you like to call it, it will control all the paperwork initially, probably for quite a while, because they got the expertise. So all the documents come to our secretary in Melbourne, then she'll pass them on over to the Common Law Court in the UK. They will go through it. Then they will send back, if we want some summonses sent to some of these galahs that we see in the background here, who they should have put a bag over their head. It might have looked a bit better, but they look rather realistic in a fictional area. So these people will be charged, and the summonses will be endorsed in the UK and sent back here, and then they'll have to be delivered within a specified period of time. And of course, the court then is set up in a public meeting, and the jury is picked from that public meeting, and the officials, etc. So it's not, we haven't got long to go, but as soon as the silly season is over with the Tooth Fairy, then we'll get it into action.
Okay, so maybe we should let viewers and listeners know exactly what we're planning, because at the moment, Australia has never had a common law court. However, our research shows that we have every right to set one up, because a common law court is a court of the people, by the people, for the people. And these common law courts have all the powers that we know courts should have. So let's first of all, Alex, perhaps you could explain the structure of the court and how it will work.
Yeah, we did have common law courts many years ago, but clearly what happened is that the bad word legislative courts realised that that wasn't a good thing for them because they didn't have any power. So they usurped the control of those. We still have in Victoria a common law section of our Supreme Court, but it still comes under their system. So it's not really what it should be. Now, the way that a common law court works is if you've got a grievance with somebody because they've either harmed you or caused a loss or broken a contract, quite simply, you just make a claim in the court and that person has a certain amount of time that they can respond to that claim in writing or in person. And on the day of the hearing, they have a choice to turn up or not turn up. You turn up, you put your case directly to a jury of your peers, and the other person has an opportunity to respond. There's no lawyers, there's no barristers, there's an adjudicator who makes sure that things run specifically, but they're not a judge. All of the judging as such is done by your peers. And there's no legal bullshit or anything like that. It's quite simply, you put your case forward. If those people unanimously agree, you get your judgment. And then they decide what the punishment or the appropriate action to be taken is.
And these 12 people must be unanimous. They must all agree on the same.
Absolutely unanimous. And they all also must be free men or women. You know, they can't still be under the legal system. They have to have stepped free and to be free living people to make that decision.
Where do CPOs fit into this?
Barry, would you like to answer that one?
The CPOs have the power of arrest under the 1914 Crimes Act, Commonwealth that is. So basically, if they find somebody committing an offence, that's about the only time they can arrest somebody, similar to the state's independent powers of arrest. I won't use the term citizen because that's another word we have to ban from our vocabulary, along with government persons and stuff like that. But as they really don't have a great deal of standing in the common law court because they're not necessary, because the officials on the day are appointed. We have to have X amount of bailiffs, which their job is to make sure that the jury don't go out and have a discussion outside the building. If they go off to the toilet, they have to be accompanied. So they just can't make phone calls outside. So they've got to carry on. Okay, so basically, yeah, then a sheriff is appointed. The sheriff is responsible for administrating the outcome of the jury decision. And of course, the adjudicator will have to have a little bit of knowledge of law. And of course, the whole thing has got to be run scrupulously, and everything must be recorded, not on video, but by tape recorders, whatever you want to call them. And then it has to be all written out and sent back to the UK for administration. So it'll come back here one way or the other. It'll be administrated, maybe a lien taken against somebody's property. But if the small cases originally will be, and of course, if someone has a lien on their property, there's lots of ways in their system, plus our system, to go after the judgment.
Yeah, I think that's the great thing that Barry said, Mike, is that their system is still going to be very useful to us because the common law system supersedes their system.
Right.
So any judgments that are made in a common law system must be empowered through and listened to by their system. So it puts a lot of their corrupt people in a very, very difficult situation. It puts their magistrates and judges and police in a very difficult situation, because if they don't uphold the law of the people, then they're going to be accountable.
And another good thing about it as well, once they've been found guilty by their peers, which is a lawful jury, we can actually publish their names, their rank, if it's necessary, on Facebook and anywhere else we like, because they have been found guilty by the people, the people's court in a community. So a whole community has made a decision. These people have got something to answer for, and there's no rebutting it. It's done. It's history. They have to pay up. or
Well,
suffer.
this is, you brought up an interesting point there about when I asked you about the CPOs, because you said that this is the only time that a CPO can make an arrest. That's not actually true. Anybody can arrest somebody.
No, the CPO is just like Section 458 of the Crimes Act Victoria. And in fact, the police are empowered under Section 458 of the Crimes Act as the Commonwealth police are. But the difference between their arrest and a civilian's arrest is I hate the word officer, but policeman or policewoman can arrest on suspicion under those acts. We have to find them committing. And that's the only difference between either the Commonwealth or the state.
Right. But we have the right to perform a citizen's arrest.
Only if you find, only if you find an indictable offence, preferably, somebody really breaking the law rather than just jumping off a bicycle and knocking some window out or something like that. But if you find them deliberately committing an indictable offence, which is an arrestable offence, then you can arrest them under either with the CPO or a resident. That's another word we shouldn't use. Another swear word, resident, has got to go as well.
Basically, if we saw somebody very dodgy looking outside of a shop, with a crowbar in his hand, we can't arrest him. But the minute he smashes the window, we can.
You found committing.
Exactly. Now, I had another very interesting question today from somebody who wants to become a CPO, but he said, I have a criminal record. Can I become a CPO?
I firstly said no, but then it's something, a decision would have to be made by 12 people, I think. It'd be a mini jury, in a sense. If he committed a criminal offence way back 10, 15, 20 years, and he's been a very decent man since that, well, then, I don't know. It's something we'd have to look at. I mean, being a CPO is not all that a wonderful position anyway.
Well, I'll give you an interesting case on that one, because I had a message from a guy today who had been charged with a criminal offence of possessing marijuana. Now, under common law, that would not be seen to be a crime. That would not be seen to be an offence. No. So he could potentially file in a common law court to have that voided.
Yes, that's a good one. I like that.
Yeah, same as
and that's a lot of people don't understand exactly what common law is. And so they try to tie it into the Constitution and other things. And it actually predates all the Constitution.
Right.
And it's very simple. You don't do harm to anyone. You don't steal anything from them. You be honourable in your contracts. And it's very, very simple in the context of how it operates. So if somebody's puffing their head off on marijuana and they're not doing any harm to anyone, they're not committing a crime under common law.
There's no victim. And if you look at the guys behind us here dressed up like something from, Evel Knievel's past, I mean, most of them are sitting criminally anyway. They've got no right to make a decision.
And,
this is going to be a great... Sorry, Mike, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say that this brings me to the question of integrity. When we go to court or when we act according to the law, we must almost act in honour.
Oh, yeah.
Always as people. And we would hope that probably 99.99% of the people actually do act in honour. They don't want to cause harm. They don't want to do that. But what we've got at the moment is we've got a legal system which doesn't care about that. They just want to exploit people and make money. And that is not, I would consider, to be a just society.
Exactly. So there is no justice under their system.
No, and I don't think there ever was.
No.
Well, justice, if you look at the meaning of justice, it's a bit woofy. I mean, they've got to dress up like look at them. I mean, look at the guys behind me, When you got to wear wigs and stuff, something from the past to administrate something in the present, it's all.
Well, it's all a costume. It's all that's why they call them acts, because it's an act.
And it should be.
They put their costume on.
It should be on a stage.
Yes. Now, one thing that's always concerned me is that when we get back to common law, government, etc., this means that these things like speeding fines and speed cameras and parking fines and all that will all disappear because there will be no legislation for that.
Yeah, there'll be no legislation, but the police under common law have enormous powers. If someone is driving a vehicle in a reckless manner, they can be charged under common law for reckless endangerment, and there's quite a number of charges. We have to have rules. I mean, rules on the road, and we have to have the law applied to the rules, but they can't be the acts. The acts have definitely got no meaning, and they're only rules. You can't. That's something you have in school, but we have to have the law. But the police have enough law on the common law to enforce discipline on the freeways and on the highways in general.
Yes. So
yeah, it's the application of common sense.
Exactly. And they're not making any money out of common law. That's why they had to get, there was too much paperwork. So they got rid of it in 1917 in Australia, and they pretended it still exists, but it doesn't, because they don't want the juries. It's this flu thing they got going around now. They got rid of the juries, and that's no jury. It clearly says no man can judge another, because all men have prejudice. So they're actually breaking the law of God and common sense.
Right. And yeah, so things are going to get very interesting. And I think this whole COVID system that they've got in place now, you know, they're still going to maintain social distancing, and they're urging everybody now to download their app. And I know what's going to happen eventually, because only a small number of Australians, I think it was 2 million, have downloaded the app. They will force it on us. They tried to force it, make it compulsory before they brought it in, but eventually they will make it compulsory by saying you can't go into a shop or a bank or do anything unless you can show proof that you have no COVID on that app.
Yeah.
And what's happened here in Australia by the Labour Party way back in 73 and 86, Hawke and Whitlam, they started the ball rolling. But now we have the Labour Party in the majority of states. So they're now insulated by their private corporations, and they're not cooperating with the federal government. They've gone back to pre-1900s, when before we had Australia became a what do you call it?
A federation.
Under our constitution, the federation. So now these rat bags, especially the Labour Party, have now isolated themselves by corporations. So we have, that's another word we have to remove from our vocabulary, is govern, because we don't have a ScoMo, as we call them here in Australia, isn't it? Well, because there'll be people overseas watching our Prime Minister. He has lost total control of the states. They're telling him what to do rather than the other way around. So we the people fighting for getting our constitution returned, that's still got to go on. Although we'll help them out with the common law, we'll take these people in their private capacity to where they belong.
Well, the Constitution was written based on common law anyway, and that's what Westminster government is all about. So, you know, we would just be getting back to the system where we should never have left.
Well, I've got some thoughts on that, because the colonies, because colonies are slaves. The word colony comes from slaves. So the colonies that were set up in the States and Victoria and that were actually set up comprising slaves. So even when they freed them and they call them a free man is just a slave that's been set free, but he's still a slave. So in effect, the Constitution was created by the slaves for the governing of themselves and for the people that they've elected. So I think we need to have a rethink, and I think we need to go back to being living men and women empowered in our own rights on the land, and come up with something. It might be very similar to a constitution that we have, but it needs to be constructed by absolutely empowered living men and women. So I think we need to go back and make sure that there's no hooks, no hidden traps in there that still link us back to the monarchy and still link us back. Because in effect, the Constitution was linked to the monarchy, and everybody was a subject. And if you're a subject, you're a slave. So I think we've got a great opportunity here to really free ourselves up as people.
Yeah, I think we'll have to, in the meantime, I think we'll have to stick to the Constitution as per se, because as an Irishman, I was never a great fan of the royal family. And although I was in the army.
But you had your chance, Barry.
I stood pretty close to the Queen with a sword in my hand once, and I laughed when I thought about chopping her head off, but I didn't do it, obviously. Otherwise, I would be a free man. But I think we'll stick along with what the Constitution we have. If we can get that back, I don't think there's people over there supposed to be over in the UK fighting it, but I think that's all hearsay. There's no paperwork to prove anybody's been there. I don't know how the heck we're going to reverse to get get Britain to reverse the decision made by Gough Whitlam and Bob Hawke, which were all unlawful. The last Governor General was Sir William, what was his name again? He got sacked by Whitlam.
Oh,
John Kerr.
Yeah. Well, he's the last Governor General. The Queen helped him get rid of Whitlam. And they said that it never happened. God save the Queen, but nothing will save the Governor General. And they now own the guy. So he took a lawful oath to Queen Elizabeth this time, but he's not practicing what he preached to say he would do. And it's the whole thing is
he's being paid by the political parties, and so
don't.
therefore he has no. And he wasn't appointed by the Queen. He may have sworn the right oath, but that doesn't mean anything.
No,
There's so many different facets to this. It's like a broken mirror. There's all these different aspects of it. And at the moment that we know that the Australian government is a corporation that's registered in Washington, DC, and it's based on Lord Howe Island. Norfolk Island. And so here we've got a foreign invading force. So technically we're under martial law. They haven't announced it, and they don't have to announce it, but they can just take charge. And we've just sort of blindly let it happen, thinking, oh, it's still our government. So there's a lot of stuff that most people are unaware of.
Yeah.
And when they find out what's going on, it explains why we've been stripped of all our rights.
Yeah, I actually had a bloke come around yesterday to look at my car, and I started talking to him about this, and he drove off thanking me. He said, I've been wondering about all this. How did we get here? I said, well, here's all the information. Here's my websites, and you go and do the research. So he's gone off now, and I tell you what, he's going to be a very shocked man. But you're right. Most people don't know what's going on.
They don't. But once we start to have these common law courts and decisions being made, and people realise they don't have to pay car registration anymore. They don't have to have a driver's licence. A lot of these imposed restrictions on them, they don't have to have them. And they're going to go, well, hang on, why have I been doing it all of these years?
I want my money back.
I want my money back because I've been duped.
Yeah.
And, it's going to make it very hard for them to sustain their system when the majority of people wake up to the deceit.
Alex, tell them about who owns Vic Fines now, that people would like to hear.
This is priceless. In Victoria, they have speeding fines and parking fines, and they send you out a notice.
And the courts. Yeah.
And the courts, and you have to pay to Vic Fines Vic. And a mate of mine, he decided to do a little bit of homework on Fines Vic, and he found out that there was no register of that company. So he went into the ATSIC and he punched the name in to register it, and lo and behold, they permitted him to register it. So he now owns Fines Victoria and Fines Vic. So they're in a rather difficult position, because now they're fraudulently taking money away from his company that he owns legally under their system. That's hilarious.
That's unreal. That's unreal. I think Serco, isn't it? That owns the whole bloody camera lot.
Yeah.
Private. They're just laughing at us. But the hardest thing is to tell us, what I call now the Walking Dead. I wouldn't insult sheep anymore, because the sheep are actually a lovely animal. But the Walking Dead, anybody see that movie, They Live? There was a fight between a white man and a black man. The white man put the glasses on, you could see everything was clear. There was advertising was obey, and anyway, they had a big fight. He had to punch the heck out of this guy to get him. As soon as he put the glasses on, he says, "Oh my God!" And the people are like that. They're just scared of knowing. They don't want to know. How the heck do we overcome that?
They've been dumbed down through medication, through stuff put into the water, into their food, and through the television, live vision, the propaganda, which the CIA have admitted that they've controlled the movies and the television for, the best part of 60 years now, 70 years.
Okay, so let's get back to the courts, because I know people are dying to hear what's going to happen. And so each state now will be setting up its own common law court. Now, let's say I'm in Queensland and I've been harmed by somebody in Western Australia, or even say in Zimbabwe. can they come to our common law court, and do they have to be in the same state? What happens there?
Well, do you want to answer that? I can answer if you want.
Yeah, well, look, I'll do it fairly quickly. I mean, there's a general rule that says that you try the matter closest to where the matter actually happened.
Right.
And if there's a reason why it needs to be moved, then it can be moved. But you couldn't say, well, I've gone to America now, so I'm going to file against somebody in Western Australia and make them go to America, even though it happened in Western Australia. That would not be seen to be fair to the person who's being accused. So the general rule would be you hold it as close to where the event has happened as possible. Would you say that, Barry?
Yeah, well, the same thing in the fictional courts. If you're too far away from where the court case, you can actually have the court case moved too close to you. So it's common sense. This is basically common sense. It'll happen if events happened in Mudgery Bar. The case has got to be held in Mudgery Bar.
And it's not a problem, because we've got technology now that somebody can be present in a court through a video link. So
in common law, sorry, Alex.
In common law. Yeah.
Common law, it has to be a physical presence, and the accused can bring somebody to help them, but not to represent them. So they can have an aid, like a Kenzie friend, but they can actually help them talk.
So no lawyers, no barristers. It's literally just you putting your case to your peers, and the other person gets to put their side forward. It simplifies the whole process. No delays. No delays, no legal jargon to string things out, because we all know that the barristers and the lawyers, they make millions out of people. If you take a couple who are having a divorce, at the end of the day, both of them are skint and the lawyers are fat.
That's not right.
Bad.
I'd just like to interrupt here for a moment, gents, because I've been asked to set up a hosting company for people who are red-pilled, in other words, who are aware of what's been going on. Now, I know that some hosting companies will not allow you to host a website with their company if you start talking politics or anything that goes against the system that they've got set up. So from now on, if you go to my website, aussiebliss.com, I've got an IT section there, and you can buy domains and hosting and a whole range of services. And I'm going to make some very, very attractive prices for this. So come along and, let's get the word out there. If you're looking for a website or something, you can do it through me. Getting back to the common law courts then. So at the last meeting, you asked me and a few other people to start making the arrangements to set up the court in each state. I'll be doing it in Queensland. So I'm looking for volunteers. And if you gentlemen would like to give me a list of the people who have been assigned in each state, I will make that available on our Bloody Aussie Battler website, and I'll also promote it on Facebook, etc.
I think we can give the contacts to you, but I don't think it's appropriate to post other people's email addresses up for other people to go. I think that people can contact you.
Yeah, that's right.
And I think it's worthwhile to note that there's not a lot of work involved so long as everybody shares the burden.
Right.
And that's the key thing. It's planning and sharing the burden. And most of the work is done in the setup stage.
Yeah.
And we've put together the rules of association, which are just being tweaked at the moment. So those guidelines are being done. Now, what really happens, it's about the states finding a venue, booking a venue, and running it on the day.
Right.
That's pretty much what is involved. And somebody doesn't have to know anything to be a bailiff. To be a bailiff, all they have to do is just make sure that the jury are kept away from everybody else. And, that the positions are written out as to what's involved, or you might just want to be a jury member.
Right. And there are no qualifications required for any of this, are there?
Just got to be a living man or woman.
Common sense. The jury, I think the jury should be picked from the public meeting, and it would be much better if they were all strangers to us as well, because nobody can point the finger that oh, you're just one of the gang. Like Brian, poor old Brian, he gets all his mates as a jury, but in real life, that doesn't really go down too well. So
No.
the public meeting is held, and from the public meeting, the jury is picked, and they're better off if they're just ratepayers or somebody that's reliable.
Right.
And of course, if the defence is there, the man being charged, being a woman, they can actually object. And it's just it's common sense. If somebody is dodgy in the jury, in either side's opinion is another word I hate, that they can actually ask them to leave. So it's common sense.
We would do discovery on each person before they sit on the jury, right?
Well, we're not going to have any persons, Mike. This is another thing. They'll be all men and women, you see.
All right.
So that's another swear word. I think, Alex, we should set up a drop box for the 10 cents every time we swear.
Yeah.
What do you reckon?
Yeah, certain words that are off limits, unless we're referring to something that is criminal or illegal, or then we can qualify it by using those words.
Yeah, I think we'll add government into that as well, because that's another swear word now as well.
Oh man, that's a dirty word these days.
Well, it's become a dirty word, hasn't it? Because they were supposed to be acting out the wills of the people, and they've turned it around, and now they're imposing their wills on the people, and that's what we have to get people to understand, that the tables have been turned, and it's our time to turn them back to where they should be.
See, Daniel Andrews has done an enormous amount of infrastructure in Melbourne, but what people don't know, on the freeways, you'll see all these wire barriers in places where they're going to be a hindrance rather than a help. So if a car ran off, it had plenty of grass to slow down. Now he's put those barriers up, and he's doing it to keep people safe, but he's not. But I know for a fact by 2022 that he's going to have autonomous cars going here. He wants to be the first state to get rid of vehicles, reduce them as much as possible, and have autonomous cars. So again, he's lying to the people that he's doing that to keep them safe. It's got nothing to do with it. It's to have autonomous cars and be the first state in Victoria to be able to dictate whether we own a car or not.
Well, once we start with these courts, I think all of that will just go away. We're not going to put up with that anymore. We've had enough.
I think we'll start at the bottom and start nipping the boot of the people who enforce these idiotic laws and work our way up.
Absolutely.
Yeah, certainly whatever's appropriate to come through, and so long as it's done properly, word will get around very fast amongst the free living people, but it's also going to get around fast about those people who are committing the crimes in the system, that they're losing their houses, they're losing their cars, because they're going to be held fully accountable by the juries.
Yeah.
It's just, it really is going to be the Nuremberg trials all over again, where these people are saying, oh, I was just doing my job. So, well, mate, you know what happened in Nuremberg? They got hung, shot, or in prison for life. So this is your chance now. Get out now.
I've had quite a few people tell me that they want to see these politicians hang. What's your views on that, Alex?
My own personal views? My own personal views is that the punishment must fit the crime.
Right.
Okay, so for instance, Bill Gates wanting to infect the whole world with vaccines, I think the appropriate punishment for him would be for him to take all of his own vaccines all at once. And if there's nothing wrong with them, okay, that's fine. Yeah. But if he suffers all of the terrible things that are being done to babies who have been killed by vaccines, and then their parents have been imprisoned for shaken baby syndrome, this is a major thing that I've got a big bugbear about, because there are grieving parents who have been lied to by the system to cover up the vaccine things, and in the process of grieving, they've been accused of killing their baby, and the baby died from vaccine.
Dreadful.
I think that the punishment must fit the crime. I don't believe that it is appropriate for us to kill another human being. I think that puts us in the same category as them. But I do believe that it should fit the crime that they've done.
Well,
and that's where you get 12 people sitting together, and they can make a common decision as to what the outcome should be.
I think a punishment that most Australians would agree with regarding the political party government is that we strip them of all their assets, all the money that they have taken off us for years after they've got out of Parliament, we strip them bare and set them
Yep,
free.
I think that's absolutely. I think that would be a fair.
Yeah.
Fraudulent income.
Yeah.
So I hope if any of these politicians are listening, that they take note, because justice will prevail. And the people are angry enough now that these common law courts are going to catch you up. So
I think that the key thing for me, Mike, is that the common law courts are not about vengeance. They're about justice.
Yeah.
So if we can get vengeance out of our head and back into justice, then we're going to come in with the right approach.
Yeah.
100%.
Honourably.
And fair as well. Everything is going to be done really fair. There's got to be no side cuts, no revenge, as you said, Alex. The case is going to be honourably conducted and without any flaws.
Look, I agree with you, but you've got to think of, I mean, this current government has destroyed our nation, and past prime ministers have led the way in destroying and selling out our nation. Their
100.
punishment must be severe.
And the sad thing about it is they did it all in our watch. We were all alive in 73 and 86, and we allowed it to happen, and now we're blaming these poor people who are asleep now. So we have to remember when we were stupid, how the hell do we get this message across for the young people to wake up?
We were just unaware. And
well, there's going to be a lot of rebooting that needs to go on, and we're going to have to claim back farms that have been sold to the Chinese and say it was illegally sold. I'm sorry, but we're going to we're going to take the money back from the people who sold it to you and reimburse you. So face, for instance, we're taking an ex-prime minister or a premier or something who's made billions of money out of exploiting the people. We'll confiscate all of their assets, and then the land that was purchased illegally, those people will be reimbursed for whatever price is determined that is a reasonable price out of the money that's been wrongly accrued. I think that is a fair way of doing things. But I'm just one person with one perspective on things. That's why we have a jury of 12.
So getting back to the common law court, is there anything else you gentlemen would like to add before we finish here?
Alex, you got something to say?
Look, all I would say to people is become aware. Knowledge is power. Right. You may not agree, you may not even understand at this stage, but ask questions.
And put your hand up to help. Help everybody else to get the system off the road. Get together in the States and help. Because on the day we need about 15, 20 people. We need people to organize the venue. We need people to organize the date. And someone, we've got good paperwork people down here, and Mick, you just need to help there as well, and in Sydney as well.
Our biggest obstacle, Mike, in Australia is the she'll be right approach.
Yep.
Where everyone sits back and goes, oh, she'll be right, it'll be fine.
Yeah.
That we have to get over that.
Yeah.
We've got to take charge.
I know a lot of people are scared to ask questions, but I just want to remind everybody, there are no stupid questions.
Exactly.
Right? No matter what you ask, if we can answer it, and help inform you and expand your knowledge, we'll do that. And if you ask a question we can't answer, we'll do our darndest to find the answer for you. And
if we don't know it, we know someone who does.
That's right.
Good one. I like that.
Well, that's what I always tell my daughters. They say, "Oh, you know everything." I said, "Yes, I do know everything, and if I don't, my brother does." All right, thank you, gentlemen. I appreciate this, and just a quick message to our listeners. I do have an ongoing open mic session each week from now on. I've moved the day to Sunday at 3 p.m. because I think that's a more convenient time for everybody. So if people come on and say, well, that's not really convenient, I want it at 5 p.m. on Saturday, well, we'll do that, no problem. And these open mic sessions will be available for everybody to come in on the Zoom call. And of course, the link is always on my Facebook page. And you can come in and ask us any questions. You can do anything you want to find out what's been going on and what you can do to get our country back on track. Okay, so thank you very much, gentlemen. It's been a pleasure as always. And
thank you for the invitation. Cheers. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you, Mike.
Australia, Terra Australis, down under, call it whatever you like. Australia is our land. People come to Australia from around the world to settle, work, and make Australia a paradise on earth. And this is why we love Australia. This is the land for you and me. Left, middle, right, we all agree. We've got koalas and didgeridoos, where the skies are oh so blue. Where else do you see big fellaroos pounding across the land? Cattle herded by jackaroos, our mates all giving a hand. We love this land, Australia. Australia is home for me and you. We love this land, Australia. Australia is home for me and you. We love this land, Australia. Australia is home for me and you. We love this land, Australia. Australia is home for me and you. Sunrise on the harbour bridge, on the way to work, digging opals under Lightning Ridge, horse races out the back of Burke, road trains ploughing up the Red Bull dust, Wave Rock and Marble Bar, a creaking windmill full of rust, our highway stretching out so far. We love this land, Australia. Australia is home for me and you. We love this land, Australia. Australia is home for me and you. Sweeping plains of golden wheat, there's sheep, cattle and corn. Long white beaches where oceans meet, this is the Aussie soul. We love this land, Australia. Australia is home for me and you. We love this land, Australia. Australia is home Yeah, it is, mate. Hang on, I need a beer.
If you're enjoying the Bloody Aussie Battler podcast, please consider donating to help keep us going. You can donate just once or make it a monthly donation. Any amount is welcome. To donate, go to our website at www.thebloodyauziebattler.com and click on Donate.